Isn't it about time for somebody's favorite radio program?
This is America's Outdoor Talk program.
Are you ready to get rowdy?
Outdoors This Week with your host, Alex Langer. Alex Langer. We've got fishing.
Believe me, folks, I have been there, and the fishing has been tremendous.
Hiking.
Adios. Have a nice trip.
Camping.
This is a real adventure.
How do you know?
When you're an experienced woodsman like me, you get a feel for these things.
Oh, really?
Heck, we've even got kayaking.
I'm going to show you kids the time of your life.
We've got all the info you need for a safe and fun day in the sun.
It's a darn good thing we found you when we did. There's something horrible roaming these woods.
And you've got Outdoors This Week. Outdoors This Week. And now, here's your host, Alex Langer.
Why, thank you, Mr. Announcer. That would be me. Without any further ado, we have a very, very special guest with us today. Now, you may say he says that for every guest. Every guest is very special. Yeah, in their own way, they really are. But this time, I really, really mean it. Scott Glorvigen is one of two identical twins. An identical twin with his brother Marty. And together, they started something called Gemini. It's a consortium of companies under that umbrella in Grand Rapids, Minnesota. Now, why would they be in Grand Rapids, Minnesota? Good question, if I do say so myself. I think they could genuinely be nuts, and they love the cold. Today, we're getting a snowstorm. It's in the 20s. Grand Rapids today is 40 below zero.
Oh, that's awful.
It's crazy.
Like Siberia.
At least. I know how cold Siberia is, but how much colder can it be than 40 below? It's like, it's cold.
It's freezing.
And they do this voluntarily. They live their life up there, and they start a business up there. They probably have the best website on the internet, bar none. I always push the Flying Lure website, but the Wired to Fish website is good. Check out wiredtofish.com. That's wired, the number 2, and fish.com. Scott Glorvigen is with us today, and we're going to pick his brain and slap him around. So that's it, folks. Don't go away. We'll be right back with Scott Glorvigen himself.
Alex Langer, Outdoors This Week.
Hi folks, Ron Lindner here for Lindner's Angling Edge Television, seen on the Pursuit Channel every Saturday early afternoon. Okay, I'm currently doing an article for the North American Fisherman. North American Fisherman has quite an extensive circulation, 425,000 last I heard. It's one of the larger magazines out there today. At any rate, the title is Anchors Away, well, sort of. Anchoring, at least proper anchoring, was considered one of the fine arts of fishing. I mean, if you were a good anchorer, you were indulged in the fine arts. Through the years, though, technology developed and things like GPS, depth finders, absolute accurate maps, trolling motors with spot lock, back trolling and drifting and the like tended to put anchoring as a prime methodology on the back shelf. A little background is necessary. Back in the day, anchoring was the mode. This is the days of the 12 and 14-foot wooden boats, the oarlocks, and maybe you had a 6-horsepower motor on the back, and not all the people owned depth finders. Actually, they were flashers in those days. And a lot of depth was determined by metered strings with weights. And you'd go out there and probe around, and you'd throw some empty bottles wrapped with a string and some weights, and you'd mark off an area. And you kind of figure, I'm going to drift troll or anchor or do something in this area. And you might throw a split shot with a night crawler around, or you might use a bomber with a minnow on it, or maybe cast an area with a plug or a spoon. These various methods were in use. Over the years, however, bass anglers in particular kind of stopped anchoring. They still do. Now, the shiner fishermen with guides which would pull up in Florida. You see them, they pull up there, they anchor down, and they put these corks out with these shiners, and they float them in against heavy cover. They still do that today, but by and large, most bass fishermen, they keep untied, as it were. They figure that with the machinery they have today, that they can hover in spots long enough to properly fish it down. And in the walleye world, they would anchor in areas and fish with leeches. They still do that till today. Anchoring as a system has not went away, but it has markedly decreased or got until recently with the innovation of talons and power poles, which you see on the back, these little towers you see on the backs of these boats. Anchoring is coming back into its own. Minn Kota's talon, you can now anchor, or what we call pin anchor, in 12 foot of water with the press of a button. Bink, it sound, you want to go leave, boom, you press the button, it's all the way up, and it does hold you, even in a pretty darn good wind. And and by the way, I hear they're even working on, no, I shouldn't even say, I'll say it anyway, they're working on 16-foot models as we speak. They got ways of doing this. So with these new anchors, talons and these power poles, anchoring is coming back to its own. These guys are, particularly bass fishermen, they're positioning themselves between maybe a very complicated dock layout. There's a lot of number of docks, and they got all kinds of offshoots and stuff. They'll position themselves. They'll pull down. We call it taloning down. Talon down, and from this position, lock themselves down and really cast out. Shoot it underneath the dock itself. Shoot it under the boat. Shoot it under the side of the canopy. That kind of stuff. So anchoring more, and they're also anchoring in stump fields. And my son Jimmy just came from a tournament up in Leech Lake where they got these big rice beds, and he says these guys were taloning down constantly out in these big rice beds, and they were flipping the real heavy weighted jigs, punch crawling they call it. Ounce and a half sinker with a 6 or 4 aught or 5 aught or 6 aught hook, heavy duty with a craw on the back, and 65-pound test braid, and a 7.5 foot flipping stick with the 7-to-1 gear ratio. They'll flip that thing out there in 3.5, 4 feet of water. Bass picks it up. I don't care how big he is. They rip jaws. My son just got through doing this. He came back and he didn't understand something. I says, I fish a lot down in Okeechobee. I practice with some of the best punch crawlers in the world. These guys tape their wrists because when you set the hook on a 5 or 6 pound bass in 4 foot of water with 65-pound test braid, there's no give. So you better have your wrists just like a fighter. So what they do is they get the tape. You buy the tape. That basketball players and a lot of athletes use. And what they're doing is they're wrapping their wrists. They're using this in conjunction with taloning down anchoring. So anchoring is back, by the way. So the long-lost art, they're starting to rediscover something that everybody used to do years ago. With that, well, see you later, folks.
Coast to coast, this is Outdoors This Week with Alex Langer.
Hi, this is David Bowie wishing you a very happy new year.
Larry Whiteley and the Outdoor World Report are proudly brought to you by the brand new Rototail, the world's first and only plastic worm with a soft rotating spinner tail. The patented tail generates unbelievable vibration that you and the fish can actually feel just like a spinnerbait or a crankbait. See it at rototail.com. That's rototail.com.
Key to winter crappie coming up on Bass Pro Shops Outdoor World.
Have you ever wanted to disappear into the woods? Have you ever wanted to tie your own flies, but never taken the time? Have you ever wanted to speak turkey? Then you belong at Bass Pro Shops. Every week, we offer free skills workshops to help you get started. See the store or go to BassPro.com for more information. Bass Pro Shops. Your adventure starts here.
Winter crappie fishing can be very good, but the key to catching them is figuring out their pattern. If you can't find out what the pattern is from other fishermen or the local tackle store or marina, then you have to do it yourself. First of all, you have to determine if they want jigs or minnows, and the only way you will know that is try both. If it's a minnow, what size do they want? If it's a jig, what size and color do they want? Maybe they would rather have a spoon or a spinner. Are they near the mouths of tributaries or near creek channels? Are they in the brush or suspended? All questions that need answering if you want to catch winter crappie, but really finding the key to catching them is true no matter what time of year you fish for crappie. Now for more fishing tips, articles, product reviews, and a whole lot more, go to BassPro.com and click on One Source, News and Tips. Get out and enjoy our great outdoors. I'm Larry Whiteley, and this is Bass Pro Shops Outdoor World.
Why, thanks, Larry. Not to put you down, Larry, but my favorite outdoor website is a site called wiredtofish.com. And Wired to Fish is a multi-species website that has all the news about fishing. You know, it's got all species pretty well represented. It was started by two friends of mine, Scott and Marty Glorvigen, and we have Scott with us today. Scott and Marty are identical twins, and I can't tell them apart. Maybe you can tell them apart, but this is the radio, so nobody can tell them apart.
I can never tell them apart.
One could be pretending to be the other. I mean, you never know.
They might be fooling us right now.
There might only be one Glorvigen brother. Did you ever think of that?
Oh, wow.
Ever think of that?
That's scary.
So it is
Have you
scary.
seen them together?
Never. In fact,
Wow.
I don't think I've ever seen them together.
No, I haven't either.
Wow.
Oh, wow.
I think we're going to have to challenge Scott today. Scott, are you there?
I am here, Alex, and thank you for having me on today. I appreciate it very much, and I appreciate the kind words about Wired to Fish. And to answer your question, you can do a lot with smoke and mirrors.
Trust me, I know, Scott. As a smoke and mirrors guy myself, it's brought me a lot of success.
Oh, man. Yes, there is two of us, and that is all the world can handle, Scott and Marty Glorvigen. If there was any more, we'd be in real trouble.
Tell me about you guys. I know all about the usual stuff. I mean, who are you guys?
We're two guys that love to fish, wanted to make a career in the fishing industry, so we didn't have a real job. So we've been working at a lot of different things, and I appreciate the kind words about wiredtofish.com. And that was a company we created going on 6 years this February, and we launched at the Bassmasters Classic 6 years ago. And it is a multi-species website. It does focus on bass fishing. It's kind of like the demographics of the fishermen across the United States, but we touch on all species of fish and make it part of our daily content. And we kind of compare ourselves to the USA Today of fishing in regards to news stories, multiple stories every day, kind of what's going on, as well as what's breaking in the news world, as well as new videos every day. And our mission, not only through Wired to Fish, but through what we do here at Marty and I do it from our professional angling and seminars and educating, is to really truly educate the angler, to help them, give them a better experience on going out, using products, catching fish, and hopefully they'll pass that on to other people in regards to the virtues of fishing and what it means to us as people throughout North America to go out and enjoy such a great sport.
I know you're from the frozen north. We're having a blizzard here right now, but to you guys, that's probably when you start breaking out your swimsuits, isn't it?
You know, this morning when I woke up at my house here in Grand Rapids, Minnesota, it was just a paltry minus 32 below. But, you know, there were people headed out to go ice fishing today. And what people don't realize in regards to the Midwest, and this year's probably has a bigger opportunity for people to ice fish throughout the northern regions of the United States, better than we've had in a long, long time, is we don't stop participating. We just prepare to participate with the proper equipment, so forth and so on.
That's kind of a positive spin on the winter, you know, because a lot of times the lakes here don't even freeze over, like on Cape Cod or in Massachusetts. And you guys always have snow and always have ice. You're just ready for it.
You know, and you look at, and probably your listeners would probably connect to places like International Falls, Minnesota, the ice box of the United States, or Baudette, Minnesota, which sits on the Lake of the Woods on the Northwest Anglo of Minnesota. And they wouldn't realize it, but winter fishing is 4, 5, 6 times bigger than summer fishing is.
No
and
kidding.
People really say, you got to be kidding me. And the resorts throughout Rainy Lake and Lake of the Woods, they rely on that winter fishing. And if I took you up there this morning where it was 40 below zero or 42 below zero, there's virtually thousands of people headed out onto the ice, whether they're going out with resorts or whether they're driving out on their own to participate in catching fish. And people don't realize how big an industry the ice fishing market is.
I need to hold you right there. When we come back, we're going to talk to Scott about his crazy assertions. All right, stay with us, folks.
He's a North Country cold loving ice fishing musky man. North Country cold loving ice fishing musky. He's a North Country cold loving ice fishing musky man. North Country cold loving ice fishing musky. Got 10,000 lakes in the palm of his hand.
More of America's favorite outdoor talk program, Outdoors This Week, after these messages.
Perch, crappie, and pike. Disappears every winter to a shack on the ice.
Alex Langer, Outdoors This Week.
Hi, this is Bill Cosby. Happy New Year.
Hold on to that, and that's a good one, sister. Tight Lines with Sammy Lee.
Hey, are you ready for some warm weather and some really hot fishing? Well, get ready because Steve Daniel is going to tell us about catching the big ones at Lake Okeechobee right now. Hello, this is Sammy Lee. I'll be back with Steve after this message. Next to catching a lunker bass, I love to eat, as my waistline proves. And that's the reason why we created our latest iPad app, ChefMate, loaded with more than 950 different recipes, from the fanciest gourmet meals to the simplest sandwich recipes. Everyone in the family will find a recipe that you'll love to prepare, and in my case, love to eat. Check out ChefMate for yourself at connectedllcapps.com, or go to iTunes to see why ChefMate will be a hit at your house, fishing camp, or hunting lodge. ChefMate, you'll thank me for creating it. In concluding my conversation with Steve Daniel about fishing Lake Okeechobee in southern Florida this time of year, I asked Steve for a few closing comments.
Bottom line, Sammy, there's no better place in the country right now to come try to catch a big fish, and that's what I like to do. I like people to come down and say, I want to catch the biggest bass I ever caught. And I say, that's something we can do. We can get around them, and I like fishing for big ones. I like throwing big lures, and I like fishing for those big trophy bass. And I catch a lot of small bass fishing for big ones. So when I'm throwing a big topwater bait, I'm throwing a big bait. When I'm throwing a big Cinco bait, I'm throwing a 7-inch one. I never throw a 5 or 6-inch Cinco. I always throw a 7-inch Cinco because I catch a lot of 12 and 13 inches on that 7-inch Cinco. But then again, sometimes when I get that big bait around those bigger fish, instead of maybe only catching 1 or 2 big ones, I might catch 8 or 9 big ones. And that's where a little experience comes in handy on Lake Okeechobee. Like I say, it's a little intimidating, but man, do they live here. This is the best bass fishing lake in the world right now, and I'm just honored to live here.
If Steve Daniel has you fired up to go to Lake Okeechobee in southern Florida for that bass of a lifetime, well, get your pen and paper ready, and I'll give you a website address to go to for more information after this message.
Is this the biggest fishing breakthrough in decades?
It's a revolutionary lure that is the most versatile plastic worm I've ever fished with.
Ever see a plastic worm with a tail that spins 360 degrees like a spinner? How does it do that? Be amazed at rototail.com. That's rototail.com. This new plastic worm effortlessly goes through any weeds and thick cover.
The unique action created by the spinning tail, along with the versatility that you can use this lure, it's amazing.
It puts to shame ordinary plastic worms that either do nothing or just wag back and forth. The tail calls fish from long distances and telegraphs what it's doing back to your rod.
The vibration that you feel on your rod tip is amazing. I never would have imagined in my wildest dreams that a soft plastic spinner, you'd be able to feel the thumping as it comes back to you.
Makes a great gift.
I believe that the Rototail is the next generation of plastic worm.
See it work at rototail.com. That's rototail.com.
Folks, to book a fishing trip of a lifetime with Steve Daniel, simply go to www.okeechobeeprosteve.daniel.com. That's www.okeechobeeprosteve.daniel.com. This will be a day on the water that you'll not soon forget. I'm Sammy Lee, and until next time, tight lines.
Tight Lines, brought to you by HuntMate, the ultimate hunting app for your iPhone. And by UFP, America's leading maker of brake systems for boat trailers.
You know, my wife calls me a twit, but now I'm tweeting at www.twitter.com/tightlinesradio. So join me daily for this update on fishing news and information.
Thanks a lot, Sammy Lee. And now we go from Lake Okeechobee to maybe the geographic opposite of the United States of America. We're going to go to the frozen north, up in northern Minnesota, where Scott and Marty Glorvigen are from. They run a website that they came up with, wiredtofish.com. Maybe my favorite website on the whole net because not only to cover all species, but it's timely. Scott, let me just ask you this. How did you bring in the new year this year?
This year we rang it in. Actually, it was kind of quiet because it was so darn cold. But what we're getting ready to do tomorrow, we're hitting the ice, and it's going to be a rocking -1 degrees for a high. So we're looking forward to doing some ice fishing tomorrow. So we'll be on the hard water.
There are people in Boston that swim in the ocean when it comes to January 1st. That's how they bring in the new year. Your water isn't even liquid.
No, it's right now. It's about 24, 25 inches thick up on the north end of the state. But ice fishing is a huge part of our economy. It's a huge part of the sporting aspect of the upper Midwest when the cold winter sets in, and it's amazing how many people have participated in on a yearly basis, and it's one of the areas in the fishing industry that is a really growth area. No. So. Equipment, gear, it all makes it a lot easier and comfortable to go out and fish than days of old.
Now, Scott, I mean, for those of our listeners that have never experienced ice fishing, that haven't been to the north, what is the appeal of ice fishing?
The appeal to ice fishing is first off, is getting out and enjoying the outdoors in the wintertime. But think of it as you're actually fishing out of your boat straight over the side, but except we're drilling a hole through the ice with an 8-inch auger or a 10-inch auger, watching your electronics and waiting for that fish to come in and hit that bait. And it's amazing the amount of fish that you do catch, because a lot of times in the winter, they really congregate up in specific...
It's fishing from a boat, but you don't need a boat.
No. Most of the time, we're either going out with early in the season four-wheelers and snowmobiles. When the ice gets safe enough, you can drive on it. Typically, we're driving our pickups out on 20, 24 inches of ice. And basically, and I talked about that technology, we're just using... GPS underwater mapping chips in our GPSs to get on the spot. So I don't have to drill 1,000 holes. I'm just driving to the spot, punching a hole, and I'm ready to fish.
Wow. GPS seems to have really revolutionized ice fishing. Am I right or wrong?
Oh, you're 100% correct, Alex. In regards to the underwater mapping that we've developed over the years, it allows us to get us to that specific spot. And one thing about ice fishing versus being on the open water is you don't have that drift factor. You don't have that move around factor. So I can really get on the spot. And when you punch a hole and you look with your electronics, if you don't see fish right away with your electronics, move, punch another hole, and find the fish, and then start fishing.
How big a factor are cameras in ice fishing?
I think the cameras when they came onto the marketplace, they really allowed the angler to understand visually what they were seeing with their flashers, okay? With the advent and the development of the new technologies through broadband sonar and screen printout, if you will, now you can visualize even better what's going on. But cameras are a big part of winter ice fishing. They're much, much easier to use in the wintertime because I'm not moving around like I am in open water. So consequently, I can set the camera, lock it down, if you will, have it in front of my bait so I can watch what's going on.
What percentage of ice fishermen would you say use cameras?
I would probably say a good 35 to 40% of the anglers that are ice fishing have a camera and will use it at some point in time during their outing.
What does a camera let you see under the ice? I mean, there's a fish, but what else is there?
The biggest thing where we use it for in the wintertime is primarily to identify species that are coming in to the bait, whether it's perch or crappies or bluegills, what have you. The other thing is to identify what we're seeing in the water column. And a lot of times in the winter, it's what we call a zooplankton bite, where you're dealing with these tiny little microscopic creatures that swim through the water.
Yep.
And if we can identify those through the use of the camera, then we can kind of like match the hatch like fly fishermen do. And what we've seen is a real big development in regards to soft plastic, tiny, minute soft plastics that kind of match the hatch of that zooplankton, so we can make adjustments.
When you talk about zooplankton, you're right up my alley. Let's take a quick break. We'll be right back. All right, Scott?
Super.
All right, folks, we'll be right back.
Hey, what do you think you're doing? Don't change that dial. Alex will be right back with more of Outdoors This Week after these messages.
From time to time, but he's got this little problem he just can't shake. He spends a little money now and then. It ain't whiskey and it ain't gin. Oh no, he's getting walleye again. One-shot gasoline rods and reels, a jigger look how great it feels.
This is Outdoors This Week with Alex Langer.
Hi, this is Sting, wishing you a Happy New Year.
The Wade Bourne Report is brought to you by the original Alex Langer's Flying Lure. Hey, that's my lure! Hundreds of millions have been sold on TV worldwide for over 2 decades. It fishes itself and swims away from you on its own. Catches nearly every game fish that's ever swam. See it at flyinglure.com. That's flyinglure.com.
Luke Bryan is about as hot and as busy in the country music business as you can get. Spends a lot of time touring, writing new songs, and making personal appearances. Luke also still finds time to sit on a deer stand or float in his boat. He says his outdoor time is when he gets to unwind. I'm Wade Bourne, and this is Wired to Hunt Radio. Today, a visit with Luke Bryan, on a roll, but still in touch with his country roots.
More Wired to Hunt Radio coming up.
Cabela's is the world's foremost outfitter for hunting, fishing, camping, and outdoor gear. They offer more gear than anybody, best selection, prices, and quality, all backed by Cabela's legendary guarantee. Shopping with Cabela's has never been easier or more convenient. You can outfit all your needs through Cabela's catalogs, website, and their many stores. Check them out at Cabela's.com. Cabela's, the world's foremost outfitter. Hey, waterfowl hunters, if you need a shotgun for the new season, check out Mossberg's pumps and autoloaders. They come in black synthetic and camo finishes. They shoot 3 and 3.5 inch shells. They offer great dependability and value. Mossberg is America's oldest family-owned and operated firearms manufacturer. Check out Mossberg shotguns online at mossberg.com. Also, be watching for the new series of Mossberg Duck Commander shotguns later this fall. Mossberg, built rugged, proudly American.
This is Wired to Hunt Radio.
Luke Bryan grew up on a farm in Georgia where he spent a lot of time hunting and fishing. Then a few years ago, Luke moved up to Nashville to pursue a career in country music, and he took off like a shooting star. And when he did, he also got really busy with the business of being a country music artist, but not so busy that he still doesn't find time to enjoy his outdoor passions.
This business is stressful. You spend a lot of time. So when you get to be in the outdoors, you get to kind of relax and take a break and you know, just chill out a little bit. And a lot of times, you know, there's no, you know, sitting in a deer stand for 2 or 3 hours. You can think about a lot of songs and even fishing too. You know, you can spend a lot of time and think about more songs and think about your career. I mean, my dad is, you know, he always told me when I moved up here, he said, you know, always make time to do some things like that, because you get to go out there and you get to spend some time on the water, and you're not on a cell phone. You're not, you know, you're sitting there thinking about ways to make your life better, your business better, your career better. So I think that's a big thing why people need to spend time in the outdoors.
That's a good look into the private life of a very public man, Luke Bryan, still just a country boy from Georgia. And that's today's Wired to Hunt Radio. I'm Wade Bourne saying thanks for listening and get outside.
Thanks a lot, Wade. And that, of course, was Wade Bourne and Wired to Hunt. President of Wired to Hunt and Wired to Fish is my next guest. His name is Scott Glorvigen. Besides his many accomplishments as a PWT walleye fisherman, an FLW walleye champion, a 2-time Angler of the Year, Scott, we were just talking about zooplankton. That has been my interest for 20 or 30 years.
What happens with the zooplankton in the wintertime, it has a huge influence on where fish locate and how they move about in the water column. What people don't realize, in the winter, the only real effects we have on the water column is the sunlight as it crosses the sky and the barometer. We don't have wind current because the wind can't push the water around. We don't have rain, runoff, wind activity, anything like that. So consequently, the zooplankton collects in certain areas. The areas you want to focus in on when it comes to crappie and bluegill, as an example, are the holes or the basin areas that maybe shallower around the edges and it drops down to 25, 30 feet. It's kind of like that's where the sediment collects. Where that soft bottom area is where a lot of that zooplankton lives and grows and moves up and down the water column. So those are key areas. But if you pay attention to the little details, and this is using the cameras or using your electronics, you'll see that that zooplankton become more active or it settles down, and you want to match the hatch, small, tiny baits to create that activity.
What does a zooplankton actually look like?
Most of the time, if you think about it, it's little tiny particles, and there's a number of different types of species of zooplankton, and you can get into the scientific words of it, but most of the time it's like little tiny insects that just kind of flutter about in the water, and they pulsate as they move around throughout that water column. What fish do, especially the panfish species, is they filter feed. They just go through them big clouds of zooplankton, almost like a whale going through creel, as they just filter it in, filter it in, filter it in. And that's why, as we've learned what we're looking at through the use of cameras and electronics, we've changed our fishing styles to more horizontal presentations and these ultra-tiny baits, these tungsten jigs, 64th ounce and 32nd ounce, to kind of match the hatch and create a bait that looks like that zooplankton, putting in the strike zone when those crappies and bluegills come through, filter feeding on those zooplankton particles, you'll get bit.
Even a 1/64th ounce jig is probably like the biggest darn zooplankton that's ever been, right?
Oh, correct.
You're really giving them something that's maybe a 2, 3, 4, 10 times bigger than the actual zooplankton?
Yeah, in some cases, you're down to almost the size of it, but most of the time it's a little bit bigger. Consequently, what happens is it sticks out more in the water column for the fish to zero in on. And typically a horizontal presentation is way better than a vertical presentation because the fish isn't opening its mouth that far.
How do you do a horizontal presentation through the ice?
Typically, what we're using is a straight line rig rod and reel, and the reason we use what's called a straight line reel is it prevents any spinning of the line, plus you get no coiling like you would from a spinning reel. Consequently, I want to get the bait right down into the strike zone, and with a horizontal presentation, that's where that jig is basically parallel to the bottom. And typically, we're tipping that tiny hook with a very small plastic, again, trying to match the hatch for the zooplankton. And it may be a waxy type bug, or it may be a tiny mayfly type imitation, but very, very tiny little tentacles on it, because you want it to stick out within that school of zooplankton, but you also want it to mimic the movement and activity of the zooplankton cloud that's down there. So it's very, very tiny moves. It's not like you're jigging for bass or walleyes. It's just basically making that bait quiver in the strike zone.
Describe to me what you do above the ice. You just shake the rod tip?
Yeah, basically what we'll do is we're sitting there, we lay the rod tip across our knees, and you just twitch it. One of the things that we've developed over the years is called spring bobbers. And they're a light, delicate wire strike indicator that is in the tip of your rod. And what happens is the bite is so light. Now, we're using 1 pound, 2 pound test line. The bite is so light that the spring bobber may simply raise up or it just may twitch down a hair and you set the hook.
Now, the spring bobber is the tip of your rod, which is a little bit more flexible than the rest of your rod, right?
Correct. And it's just a strike indicator like you would use trout fishing or that. It just allows you to see that light, delicate bite that the fish has. They're just filtering, so you want to see that.
How is the filtering bite different from the chomping bite?
If you've ever noticed when you're catching a crappie and you hook them right in the very tip of the nose, that tells you it was a filtering bite. They moved up to the bait, they flared their gills, the jig came in, you set the hook, and when you hook a fish straight in the top of the nose like that, they've filter fed versus aggressively chomping on it.
That's amazing. I've learned something new today.
Well, and that's part of our job at Wired to Fish, is to educate. If we can share and educate, we've done our job.
Thank you for being on Outdoors This Week. Thank you for providing your Wired to Fish and Wired to Hunt radio series. We play it faithfully every single week.
I appreciate, Alex, and the opportunity to come on your great show and have a chance to visit with all your listeners. I encourage everybody, even though it's cold, get out there and safely enjoy winter fishing.
All right, Scott Glorvigen, thank you very much. And tell Marty I said hello, all right?
I will do that. Take care, everybody.
Thanks a lot. Bye-bye.
Alex Langer, Outdoors This Week.